In today's latest news, we talk Todd Boehly and his rant after the Brighton game. I've got some thoughts and opinions behind the story. We have striker update news around Romelu Lukaku's return and Hojlund of Atalanta. So we got a ton of things to break down and discuss. Hope you guys enjoy. Hit that like button. Let's get 2k likes today, my friends. And of course, share your thoughts and opinions as well without wasting any more time. So right now, let's discuss the owners criticizing the squad after the game against Brighton. Now, it was revealed that Vice, Igbali, Todd Boehly, they addressed the squad after the game against Brighton and they weren't to impress. Now, in my opinion, I guess it was really no surprise why they had this particular energy for the squad after the game against Brighton, because that was the first time that a lot of the fans were showing vocal dissent towards the board and the owners. So it's only natural that once you're feeling that type of pressure from the fans, you want to then put that pressure back to the squad, because the owners are thinking, listen, we're doing our best here to put this club back to the top. There's only so much we can do if the players aren't performing, and with all these different managers at the club as well too. Like, can we just go on this spree of hiring and firing managers when the players on the field have to do better? I think this is where there's a very interesting conversation, but before I get onto that, let's discuss some of the news that we learned from these reports. And these reports came from like the Times, the Independent, the Telegraph, all like the major UK publications, and they revealed that one of the reasonings behind why they had this energy for the squad after the Brighton game was to act as motivation to give the team a bit of something to fight for, to play for our game tonight against Real Madrid. Because if we lose against them tonight, which is very likely, we say goodbye to Champions League football for at least 18 months. Now, it was revealed that the owners were asking questions such as, why aren't you performing to your high standards, or the standards of which we paid a lot of money to sign you guys to begin with? We heard that a few players got singled out, with one of the rumours being that Raheem Sterling in particular had a lot of focus on him during that dressing down. The board were asking questions such as, based on their reputations, these guys should be playing to a much higher level. And of course, they were very upset by how embarrassing our form has been recently, because since January, after spending even more money reinvesting back in this team, it seems like our form has got even worse. So I guess for me, this is where I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions, and I feel like it does show a bit of naivety from the owners, but I'm not going to say it from like a condescending point of view. I mean, these guys are all very successful businessmen in their own rights, and they did the right thing. They did the right thing by outsourcing areas of footballing expertise to the right people, to the right minds. That's what successful business people do. They hire the best minds to run things, and that's why Vivell, Lawrence, Stewart, so many of these guys have like a lot more power and control of the club, and all they really have to do is give the final words to the owners. They understand that, but I do think that maybe some of the comments express a bit of naivety, because just because you've spent a lot of money, that doesn't give you any right to think that you've made a team. Because to be a team implies that you're united in your philosophies, you fight for each other, you got the right dressing room balance in terms of personalities and dynamics behind the scenes. There's a core goals and principles that everyone is actually like united behind and actually complements as well too. And this is the complete opposite to anything we have this season. I mean, for example, compare the summer business we did to January business. In the summer, it was signing experienced guys for overinflated fees, giving ridiculous wages, like Sterling on over 300,000 a week, Koulibaly on over like 250k a week. Crazy wages and crazy money spent. And then in January, the whole plan is completely different. It's about spending money on the best under 22 players in the world. And already in the space of a few months, you're showing a lack of unity. There's a lack of complementary factors that is going to get a team playing together and doing the right things. I mean, it's just not as simple now to be blaming anyone. I think for me, and I always see it like this, the people that have more control to actually affects change, that's the owners, that's the people that control who comes into the squads, who gets sold, etc. I've always felt like people have like the greatest powers, have more responsibility to get things right. And I think in hindsight now, because I hold my hands up, in January I thought, okay, we're back to the top now. I've learned a lesson that football and this sport, sport that involves like human beings, it just doesn't really work like that. You need to give these guys a bit of time and understanding to, play towards a system. And to this day, as I've been saying a lot of times, once the season ends, we did learn nothing. There's nothing to take forward from this season to the next season. But going back to square one again, And that really sums up just how much of a mess the season's been. I mean, from the different managers, different tactics, terrible pre-season preparations as well too. Listen, I understand that post-sanctions, times were going to be hard. But in hindsight, which I'm admitting right now, we needed to be a bit slower with our approach because we still have to compete to get Champions League football. But the amount of change brought this season was just way too much to realistically expect there to be like a high level of sporting performances. And this is where I sympathise for the players a bit, because I think for large parts of this season, I have seen players that have tried. I'm not going to sit here and be like these guys have done nothing. I say there's been a few games, in particular Spurs recently, Brighton as well too, where there has been a massive psychological drop-off. But I sympathise because when it's your fourth manager this season already, where's the motivation going to come from? It just communicates that there's no real structure, really. Everyone's fending for themselves. And how are people going to play their best football and perform to their best abilities when the whole structures around them aren't really of the same level? So I don't think it's all down to the players, because let's use Raheem Sterling as an example. Now, as I said, I felt like in the summer this was a complete waste of time signing him, because we need players that have the footwork, that can create space using 1v1 dribbles and moments, and Sterling just doesn't do that anymore. That's why Pep was okay letting him leave. But if you play to his strengths, there's movement in behind. He's more like a forward now, in my opinion. You see what Sterling does, but throughout the season, he's played on the left, he's played on the right, he's played as a striker. There's been no continuity in terms of the positions he's playing in. And in tandem, the players he's playing around to develop and build understandings, because this is important. When you watch big teams play, or most teams who are team actually play football, you see regular combinations, regular understandings, regular runs and movements being made. We can't do that. And I think for me, this was exasperated even more after January, where Graham Potter obviously was trying to force as many Jan signings into the lineup as possible. And the football he was trying to play post-January was completely different to what we were doing before the January window. And it just kind of further exasperates the point I'm making of there's been no lack of unity or structure for anyone really to develop or grow or build anything. And just because individually you guys have reputations, that doesn't mean that when you play together, that's going to instantly make you become a team. I think that shows a lot of naivety, to be fair with you. And sport, unfortunately, just doesn't work like that unless you get those proper foundations secured. So until we have a manager that really cuts the squad down, because the squad is ridiculously bloated, and that's going to cause issues after issues by itself. I mean, it's very naive to think that's not going to cause any issues in terms of the football being played, yeah? Until we have the squad cut down, until there's a set pattern of play, until we understand who are the players we actually want to build around and make them the spine of the team, which is another important thing you need in the sport. Like for example, if you have Enzo Fernandez, is he going to be a pivot guy his whole career here? Or is there plans to make him play further forward as a box-to-box mid? Decisions like this have big ramifications in terms of the rest of the team, how we're going to play, and what we're going to do. So until we really address and finalize what we're trying to do right now, I think we deserve a season like this, and I think it's been a very, very humbling season, and I think it's a collective failure. There's not one person I can point the blame on, but I think it starts from the top layer with the owners and the boards, the staff, the transfer team, the coaches, the players, and it trickles down. So that's my thoughts and opinions behind the run. What do you guys think? Is Todd Boehly absolutely justified, or do you think that, of course, him and the owners have to take some responsibility for this season as well too? Let us know below. Right now, let's move on to discussing Romelu Lukaku, as it seems like he could be set to return. Now, it has been hinted at in Italian reports now for the past few months that Inter Milan might not, of course, exercise the right to buy Lukaku on loan again for the following season. And that's because of things like, him not having the best season, injuries playing a part, their finances being quite poor, and the fact that Lukaku already is incredibly expensive. I mean, altogether, the package just to sign him on loan for one season was around 20 million euros. For a club like Inter Milan, that is a lot of money, and based on the season they're having right now, it's just not justifiable at this point in time. So reports are actually saying that they don't even want to negotiate possibly getting Lukaku on reduced terms for the following season. They think right now it's best to let him leave. And they have their attentions on guys like Marcus Thuram, who is going to be available on a free, and for Inter's financial situation, it makes more sense going for a player like this. So it seems like we're set to have a Romelu Lukaku-sized headache for next season. But this is the conversation I want to have. Is this really a headache for us right now? Or could this be an opportunity for us? I mean, for me, I just think I feel quite uncomfortable that we've signed someone for over 100 million. He's by far the highest earning player in the history of this football club on 340k a week. And the fact that, us Prem clubs can just write off players who've been signed for this magnitude of money just like that does not sit right with me, because when I break it down, it essentially comes down to his relationship with Thomas Tuchel. Because from what I've been hearing, and I'm not trying to say this to be on a gas thing or nothing like that, but obviously with the YouTube channel over the years, I've been fortunate enough to hear this and that and gain certain insights. It's just the reality of things, and it'd be the same case for anyone if you're in my shoes. But there was no beef with Lukaku behind the scenes with the team. It was just frustrations with Thomas Tuchel. And am I going to hold Lukaku to such like a negative light because him and Tuchel didn't see eye to eye? That's got nothing to do with me. And that's not good enough in my personal opinion. And you could argue in hindsight, looking back, the guy has tried to make it at this football club now throughout his whole career. It's his third time back. Like, he was really persuaded to leave Inter Milan to sign for us. He was given a lot of promises from Tuchel and the board as well too. And when you realise during the halfway point of the season that a lot of the things that were promised to you aren't working out, it's only a human nature thing to kind of be like, I'm just kind of done with this situation. Like, my whole career, I've tried to make it at my boyhood club. I've not had the right support. I'm back again now for incredible money, and it's still not going to plan. I mean, he realised that it was a sinking ship, to be fair with you, and he's like, at my age right now, after everything I've witnessed in this game, I want to go back to a club I feel familiar with. And it's unfortunate that he's started the season at Inter Milan with injuries, because with Rom, he's a very big frame, stocky guy. So when he has an injury, it does imply that he's going to put on weight if he can't really walk on or train to the right ways. And that's going to take him a bit of time to get back to his lean optimum mass between like 95 kilograms and like 98 kilograms. So listen, he's getting a bit fitter now. He's been scoring a few more penalties recently, but I understand why Inter Milan can't sign him. But for us, just because of his relationship with Thomas Tuchel, is that enough to just dismiss him when Tuchel himself had difficulties at this club during his final moments? I don't think that's good enough to write him off. And I do kind of think the criticism Lukaku's got, which I've said even back when the controversy happened during the start of last year, I didn't agree with it. And I'm still going to stand by that, to be honest with you. So I think there's an opportunity for Lukaku here. He has the right personnel around him right now. We're not playing the same way we played under Thomas Tuchel. I don't see why it wouldn't work, knowing the fact that it seems like Lukaku could be in like peak physical fitness once we have pre-season. And the fact that we don't have Champions League football, if you want to sign a striker, maybe we have to be a bit more patient now and wait for the following season or the season after. But I don't think Lukaku is that bad of a player or has been that awful that he can't get another opportunity here. Knowing the fact that even during Tuchel's season, yes, he missed one or two chances like against Madrid and others, but he was by far the best, most clinical finisher we have. And this season, we've missed 42 big chances, 42 big chances. So even if Lukaku comes back, you're guaranteed at least a minimum of 15, 20 goals, which is way more than anyone else in this squad can do right now. So that's my opinions on Lukaku. That's the story behind him. How do you feel about him? Do you think he deserves another opportunity? Or would you be frustrated and angry if you saw Lukaku returning back to the club? As I said in a previous video already, Atalanta's CEO already met with us during the second leg game against Borussia Dortmund to hold talks, and Hojlund was a focus of conversation. We know that there's going to be more talks planned in the future, and I think it's for good reason, because Hojlund is a very talented player and he has had a very impressive season. But when I say impressive, it doesn't mean that he's had a perfect season. It means that his development, his education, and how he's been slowly rising throughout the season. I think this culminated in his performances for the Danish national team, where he made his debut and he scored 5 goals in 2 appearances. Anyway, during discussions, it was revealed that a price tag of around 68 million euros is an attractive offer, which could lead to more conversations and hopefully a deal behind the scenes. But I guess with a story like this, let's go back to when we signed Enzo Fernandez. Enzo was always number 1. And I think this summer, Osimhen is number 1, but we still have to assess the other targets if we can't get our number 1. Hence why names like Victor Roque and Hojlund are the main 2 young strikers we are currently looking at, because I wouldn't be surprised if we couldn't sign Osimhen in the summer window. I like Roque, I like Hojlund. I've watched Hojlund for Atalanta on BT as well too. This guy's got this unique part to his game in terms of how he plays. I mean, what, 6'2", 6'3", stupidly explosive, very fast. He can run the channels, he can take his men on, he has footwork, he can hold the ball up, he can lead the line, he can drop into the spaces to bring his teammates into the game. Like, for me, he's shown all the hallmarks of someone that could be like an elite level complete forward in the future. And it kind of gives me some comparisons with Didier Drogba, because when Drogba was young, making his name, he was more like a pace merchant type of striker, but he had the ability to do other things. And I think, you know, as he got older, he developed and fine-tuned the rest of his game. And in the end, he became one of the best strikers I think I've ever seen in terms of what he could do on the field, in terms of assists and goals. And I think a player like a Hojlund has the potential to, you know, kind of match that type of development path in my opinion. But it always comes back to this. I don't care how many good, young, talented players we're looking at. Our main thing at this football club is that for all the great, young, super talents we sign, they never go to the next level. And it's not because these guys were never the right guys to begin with. It's because the structure, the environment, you know, the footballing culture at this football club constantly undermines potential. And I think Havertz is a prime example, because if Havertz didn't sign for us, if he went to Bayern and went to Madrid and waited, he'd be a much better player right now. And can you blame him when he's been played this way, that way, using this role, that role, playing with this guy, that guy? There's something new and different every week. It's not an environment that suits for young players to go to the next level. That's how I see it. And until we create those conditions, we're going to keep undermining potential, keep undermining talent. Like, when you sign these guys, you need to have a proper plan for how they're going to be used and how you want them to develop to, you know, meet that world-class potential. You're signing them for big money already. Like, let's use Enzo Fernandez as an example. He's playing in the pivot role, which is needed, the Jorginho role. But this is a complete midfield player that can play further forwards and affect the game further forwards. How you decide to use him has big ramifications on the future of the team, how teammates can play with him, what the tactics are going to be, etc, etc. And for me right now, it just seems like we sign proper super talents. What are the conditions to really harness their individual potential to help them achieve that? I don't really know what it is, and I think this season I've seen absolutely nothing. So my thing is, you can keep signing great young players, but don't think they're perfect. They're going to make mistakes, and it comes down to, are you going to create that environment for mistakes to be learned from? Is there going to be a degree of patience behind what's happening here? Because I'm hoping it's not going to be a naive thing of thinking, you know, we're playing Football Manager, you sign all the best young players and instantly you're winning the league, because football at this level doesn't work like that, especially when our rivals are at a greater level compared to us, because they actually have years working on their way of playing, their philosophies, you know, their football, and we don't. So it really comes down to getting the right manager, and a part of me wants to hopefully wait for the manager to come first before we really start to sign players. Like, I'm okay with having discussions behind the scenes, but, you know, to create this thing of we sign the players and the manager has to make sense of it, it's been a bit, it's had middling success. So you guys, that is the latest news out of the way. Share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about these stories? And of course, I am going to be streaming our second leg game against Real Madrid later tonight. So on that note, I'm Nini FC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.